Predvsej te knjige Odrešilna pot, Redemption Road, v angleščini, Ljubljana, irskem. Brendana McManusa. Brendan, very welcome.
Thank you.
Knjigo je prevedla Marija Beniger iz angleščine. Založba Dravlje, verjetno poznate založbo, izdaja knjige z duhovno vsebino. Tudi ta pričujoča knjiga je nastala na temelju osebne izkušnje, ki se sooča s človekovim duhovnim življenjem in preizkušnjo, katero je človek potisnjen. Brendan govori o svoji izkušnji. Njegov brat je naredil samomor. Po mojih podatkih naj bi bilo lani 411 samomorov v Sloveniji. Brendan je duhovnik, jezuit. Imel je občutek krivde, občutek, da ni kaj naredil narobe, da ni pomagal svojemu bratu. On, ki kot duhovnik, ki je poklican, da pomaga ljudem, da oznanja veselo novico, in svojemu bratu pa ni mogel pomagati. Padi v depresijo in potem se odloči, da bo šel na kamino. Je kdo že bil? 1, 2, še kdo? Se odloči in gre in na poti on predela to svojo bolečino, odnos s svojim bratom, odnos tudi samim seboj, proces soočenja z bolečino, z občutki krivde. In po vrnitvi je pisal knjigo Redemption Road, tak bestseller na irskem, izdana pri založbi Orpen. And Brendan, so is this your first time in Slovenia?
I think I was here before in Slovenia, maybe 15 years ago, on a workshop. Everybody understand English? Yeah? Mostly. My backpack was stolen in the station in Barcelona, and I lost my passport, I lost my computer, I lost all my photographs and everything. But like everything in life, it was a test to see how I can let things go and how you can get over this, you know. So I wasn't worried. I mean, these are just things. Things are not important, because people are much more important than things, obviously. And the things of the heart are much more important than the little things, you know, clothes, computers. These things are not important, I think. So everything was different, everything was chaos, but everything works out in the end. And here I am, so I'm very happy to be here. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that I am here. And everything in my life is about being a pilgrim. You know the word pilgrim? What's it in Romer. So being a pilgrim means it's not about me. It's about God ultimately. It's about how I respond to different situations. That's the story of my life, and that's the story of the book.
You're coming from Northern Ireland. In the past, many times we have heard about Northern Ireland, about the conflicts. Nowadays, we're hearing about Brexit. How do you feel? What's the situation now in your country?
Yeah. So obviously the north of Ireland is a very special place because of the history and the conflict. Remember the lot of violence between the two different sides, and people always think it's about the Protestants and the Catholics, but that's just a superficial thing. It's actually about two different, what we call tribes, or two different cultures with very different political, cultural goals. So one group wants to be part of Ireland, the Catholics, the nationalists. Another group wants to be part of United Kingdom, the British identity. So there's two groups, each looking to different places for their identity, and that's the source of the conflict. And the Catholic Protestant thing is just an accident, really. It's just a historical accident. So it's not about religion, it's about culture. But the peace process has been very successful. Peace process is based on Christian principles about dialogue, about people deserve respect, people deserve to have their culture respected, and that we can make something together, we can make an agreement together, and that has been very successful. Unfortunately, Brexit has been a disaster because it upsets the whole political balance and it makes things too much on the British side. So we have to, I hope Brexit doesn't happen, by the way. I hope it never happens, because there's a lot of pressure to stop Brexit. It's insanity, economically, politically, especially for the north of Ireland. It's madness. It's not a good thing. So I hope it doesn't happen. I'm praying.
Maybe can you tell us just a few words about your childhood, about your family? How did you enter into the Society of Jesus, to the Jesuits?
Yeah, so I always tell people that I had 3 careers in my life. 3 different types of jobs. Yeah, so I grew up on a farm. 100 acres, 100 cows, and 2 tractors. It's very important. And it was a lovely upbringing. Very peaceful. Everybody works. Strong family. Very strong Catholic identity. Mass, the Rosary. Very strong community bonds. And the family was everything. The family is at the heart of society, really. A strong family. Everybody helps on the farm. Everybody works. Everybody does their thing. So my father was very ill when I finished school, and I had to run the farm for 2 years. And I realized I was never going to be a farmer. It didn't feel my vocation, So I went back to college and I studied computers, and I got a job in England with an American computer company, with Hewlett Packard, and I had this great job. It's HP on the front, and I used to work for them. And it was great training, and it was great experience and everything. But I learned an important thing. I was not happy, even though I had lots of money, and I had a sports car, which is a very important thing back at home, And I had the girlfriend, and I had a house, and I had a great job, and I had trips to the States. But see, in here, I wasn't happy. It wasn't me. It felt like it was something. Other people thought this was great. My family thought it was great. My friends thought it was great. But I honestly, I didn't think it was great. It wasn't. There was no meaning. There was no substance. It felt superficial. So I started looking around, and I went to Australia to get away from England, because the culture was very individualistic, very materialistic. In the south of England, it's about money, essentially. So I had to get away, and I went to Australia, and I began a new life, and I began looking at faith, or looking at meditation, looking at prayer, looking at different ways, and I came across the Jesuits. In some ways, I didn't choose the Jesuit thing. It chose me. Things happened. I was in a Jesuit parish, and I talked to a Jesuit priest, and we became friends, and I would meet with him regularly. And eventually, I realized that it was the Jesuit thing. I just got closer and closer to the Jesuits, and then I went back home to Ireland, to Dublin, which is in the south of Ireland, right? I grew up in the north of Ireland, which is a different country. And I went back to Dublin, which is the Republic of Ireland, a different culture, and began the Jesuit training there, it goes on forever, for like 12 years, because there's a joke in Ireland that the training is so long because we are so slow. You get the joke? And you do all the training, and it takes a long time. But there's a couple in the beginning. The first 2 years is called the novitiate, which is like the training period. And there's 2 key experiences. One is, have you heard of the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius? It's a 30-day silent retreat. The 30-day retreat is one thing, and then you have to do a 30-day walking pilgrimage.
You went in Spain?
Yeah, so we were in Spain, the classic Jesuit route from Loyola to Manresa. But you have no money, so no money and no Spanish. So we learned off these phrases, maybe six phrases in Spanish. So like we have no money, we are Jesuits, can we have some food? and can we have a bed for the night? You know, simple phrases. So just to tell you one experience that happened though that was crucial for this book and for this experience that was really had a profound effect on me was about a week into this walking pilgrimage when we hadn't eaten properly, we hadn't slept properly, and you know it was, you were on the road all day and you don't know what's going to happen. It's very just terrifying in some ways. It's difficult. You're always with another Jesuit novice, so there's two of us, and I was saying to him, I'm going to go home. This is too much for me. So it's like I can't do this. You know, it's just like impossible. We got into this church hall that night. A priest led us into the hall, and we got some stew in a tin, Red Cross rations, you know, in a tin. I remember very clearly because we were starving. So we're eating the food, and I'm telling him I'm going to go home. And he said to me, he said you can go home if you want. He said, but he says you haven't prayed with this. He said you haven't prayed with this. He said he said to me, you think it's all about you. You think it's about you being a big hero and doing this great thing. He said, go away, go and pray with that. He said, and then tell me your answer. This was difficult advice to hear, let me tell you. But it was brilliant. It was a brilliant advice. So I was praying in the corner of the hall. There was a picture of Jesus on the nets on the wall. So I was praying, and it was real prayer. It was real prayer from the heart. And I was saying, if you want me to do this, Lord, you're going to have to help me. It's called handing it over, giving it to God. And things. It wasn't a big dramatic improvement, but things happened that I began to trust. I began to let go of the fear. Fear is the enemy of faith and of trust. Fear destroys your peace of mind, your ability to walk with God. We had an extraordinary experience. I mean, we managed to. We got food. We got somewhere to stay every night. We slept in garages. Slept outside in a field for the first time in my life. Slept in churches, ruined churches, castles, everything. At the end of that, that's when I realized I was going to be a Jesuit. My commitment to respond to this God was so obvious to me. It was like really clear. This is what God wants, and I want to respond to that with generosity. This is really important because when it came to the story about the book, I had this huge insight. If you want to get the answers for a difficult situation, you have to go back on the road. You have to be a pilgrim.
And then you went to Camino. Why did you go to Camino?
I never saw this coming, but unfortunately my brother, he took his own life back at home on the farm. He was the one who was running the farm. So he died by suicide. So it was a terrible shock. Probably the worst thing in my whole life, and probably the worst day of my life was doing, as a priest, I'm doing my brother's funeral. You know, to be on the altar, to be trying to say something sensible, and to be feeling just awful, just devastated. It was trying to get an answer to this situation, the grief process. So one of my philosophies is if you need help, you just go and get it. You know, you can't be have a false pride about, you know, I'm not going to accept any help, or I'm going to try to keep it all in here. I wasn't like that. I was determined that I was going to find a way through this difficult situation. So I did everything I could. I had counselling. I went to a suicide support group for people that had been bereaved by suicide, and I wrote about it. I talked to other people about it. Everything. But I still knew that it was not enough. There was something missing. There was something significant missing, and I was trying to. There's a Jesuit word called to discern. I was trying to figure out what is missing, or what could I do, or where is God calling me? That was the question.